This is my in-the-field, hands-on review of the newly released Sony a7R Mark IV paired together with the recently released Sony 200-600 zoom lens. Hi folks, I'm Juan Pons, and I'm here in famed Lamar Valley in Yellowstone National Park. I've been in Wyoming for the past week in Grand Teton National Park and Yellowstone, putting the a7R Mark IV through its paces. I've paired the camera with the newly released 200-600 millimeter lens from Sony, and I am finding this setup to be absolutely awesome for wildlife photography. I'm primarily a wildlife photographer, so that's what I've been shooting and putting and how I've been testing this camera. Now, I've been very lucky in that I've made some incredible images over this past week, and I want to share with you what those images are before I go on to tell you about the camera. Let's take a look. Okay, as you can see, I've been very productive and very busy these past few days. But you know, it's not all luck. Yes, luck has a lot to do with it, but I've been conducting photo workshops in Yellowstone for 16 years. And I know Yellowstone incredibly well. I know where the animals like to be. I know where to be to get the animals at the right time of day. And I know the environment that they like. I know their behavior, so I can predict their actions and be able to photograph them effectively. Now, having said all that, I want to tell you a little bit about the camera and what I like and what I don't like about the camera and how it performed. What I really love about the camera is the new ergonomics. I think the ergonomics on the R4 are so much better than the A9 or the R3. The beefier grip, the bigger buttons on the back, the better tactile feel on the buttons make a big difference. I have really enjoyed using this camera. I find it a lot better ergonomically. The other thing that I really like about the camera is the new viewfinder. I think the new viewfinder is absolutely awesome. Much more detailed images, very bright. I'm able to really see the detail on the images as I'm looking through viewfinder, especially when I'm doing manual focus. So a big improvement there. But the biggest improvement is certainly the new sensor, the 60 megapixel sensor. I think that I like, a lot of people are complaining and saying, who needs that many megapixels? I do. I love megapixels. And the reason for that is because it allows me to crop images that I otherwise may not have been able to capture correctly, or that I may not have been able to reach my subjects. Even at 600 millimeters, sometimes that's not enough. And if I need to crop into my image to create a pleasant composition, I'm sacrificing some pixels. So the more pixels I start with, the less, or the more resolution I'm going to end up at the end of the day after I do my cropping. So I absolutely love the new sensor. The low light performance and the dynamic range is very similar to the R3. So, you know, that's sort of a give and take. Now, what about the autofocus system? And this is the biggest question I had about this camera. And a lot of you guys have as well. And I have to say that I'm actually pleasantly surprised. It actually works really well. It's maybe a tad better than the R3. So for general wildlife photography, I found this combination incredibly useful and very, very versatile. Now, certainly if my primary focus was birds and birds in flight, I'm going to work with the A9. I'm not necessarily going to be working with the R4. But if you could only afford one camera, this is the one that I would get, the R4, because it's so much more versatile. You have much bigger files, much better low light performance, much better dynamic range than the A9. So for me, this is the winner combination. I absolutely love this combination. I think it's going to be great. It continues to be great. I made some incredible images with it. Now, not all is rosy. You know, I love the camera, everything about it. The only thing that I have to complain about is I ran into some issues occasionally with autofocus, maybe half a dozen times over the past 5 days, and I've been shooting a lot over these past 5 days. But I had a situation a number of times where, you know, my lens was focused close to the minimal focusing distance, and then I tried to focus on a subject that was, I don't know, maybe 30, 40, 50 feet out. And when I pressed that back button focus on the camera to engage the autofocus system, the camera wouldn't focus. It was a little disconcerting because, you know, we're shooting wildlife, every second, every microsecond counts. So, you know, I was able to get the camera to focus again, sometimes by turning it off and turning it back on, or actually trying to focus on a different subject and then press the autofocus button, and that seemed to engage it. So I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to write to Sony and find out what is going on, why that's happening. It's kind of hard to describe and hard to reproduce, but it certainly is happening. Now, it's only happening occasionally. Like I said, you know, out of the 5-7 days that I've been shooting, it's only happened, you know, half a dozen times. And I've been shooting very, very consistent over the past week. So it's a small fraction. But still, you know, the camera shouldn't be doing that. I don't know what's going on. By the way, using the focus limiter on the camera seems to alleviate the problem somewhat. So something to think about. When I ran into this problem, I did not have the focus limiter set to any of the shorter ranges. I had it on the full range. So maybe that had something to do with it, but still it's a little disappointing. Other than that, I mean, I think this combination is great. You know, I wish it was a little bit lighter, but, you know, don't we all? No system is perfect. No setup is absolutely perfect. You know, photography is all about compromises. And what I've done is I've compromised the autofocus performance for the larger number of pixels, for the bigger sensor, if you will, or the higher resolution. Because for me, being able to crop and being able to then end up with more megapixels for when I'm printing is important. But for you, maybe a little bit different. But again, as I mentioned earlier, if you only can afford one camera, you can't do the a7R IV and the A9, certainly the a7R IV would be my recommendation. This camera is absolutely awesome. You know, very responsive. Like I said, the viewfinder is incredible, very, very nice. And the resolution, the images, the quality of the images that are coming out of the camera are awesome. Anyways, I hope you found this information useful. If you did, I would encourage you to share this video with other people, other photographers that you know, friends, people that may benefit from this information. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, I would ask you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe button. And if you want, you can also click on that little bell in YouTube in order to be notified when I post new videos. Now, if you have any questions, as always, make sure to post them on the video comment section or send me a message or post it on Facebook. I'm pretty good about responding to all of your questions. Sometimes it takes me a little bit because I'm traveling, but I try to do it as quickly as possible. Well, I hope you guys found this useful, and until next time, take care.